Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, in information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Alison Wilson. She is a leadership coach and she helps unlock leadership potential in those who cannot see it in themselves. Welcome to the show, Alison.
Thank you, AJ. It's a pleasure to join you.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Alison. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll be talking about unlocking hidden leadership potential. But before that, let me understand a bit about your journey. You come from a chemical engineering background, and now you went into executive coaching. So help us understand a bit about your journey, so that people know who they are listening to.
Yeah, of course. So yes, my background was as a chemical engineer, and I enjoyed that very much. I liked the technical challenge of working in engineering. But early in my career, I worked in manufacturing, particularly manufacturing management in pharmaceutical production. And through that path, I began to manage teams quite early in my career, and I became very interested in personal development and how different people contributed better under certain environments, certain leadership styles, and also the impact of leadership on the wider organization. So that was something I'd always been interested in. And then later on in my career, I had the opportunity to train as a coach. So that's something I did. And I trained as a coach because I was considering a career change. I just wanted to explore working in a different area. But actually, going through the process of training as a coach, I changed so much myself. I just underwent this phenomenal personal growth as a result of thinking and working in that way. I actually did come back to a more technical role, but my career progressed very, very quickly. I became chief operating officer of the company that I was working with. And I just saw things in a different way. And what I saw was that I'd had so much more opportunity in front of me all the time, and I just hadn't been able to see it. So that kind of made me even more passionate about supporting others to see what I had seen and learn that for themselves and unlock their own potential. So I finished my role as chief operating officer last year and came back to working full time as a coach.
Wonderful. Oh, wonderful, Alison. Now, to understand this better, you talk about that leadership potential, and a lot of people are not able to see it for themselves. A lot of people, the earlier saying was that leaders are not created, they are born leader. So why is it now that this whole concept is talk changing? You are talking about hidden leaders. So I want to understand, means, uh, is it a new phenomenon, or was it always there about this whole concept of hidden leaders? Help us understand a bit about the old saying, as well as the present concept about hidden leaders. Who are these hidden leaders?
Yeah, sure. So I'll start by describing what I mean when I say hidden leaders. So I mean people that have a natural tendency to behave in ways that are have been shown to be very effective at delivering results through others. So these are the kind of behaviors like having putting the interest of the group above their own personal interest, having being curious and very open to considering lots of different opinions, having humility, being prepared to question what they think they know and open to kind of building on other people's ideas. And what I had noticed through my career is that these people were in the organizations that I was working in, but often they weren't the people in the leadership roles. They were kind of behind the scenes. And when you worked in the business, you knew that these people were absolutely critical. They were like the glue holding the organization together. But they tended not to be the people that were being selected for promotion and pulled out as the kind of future leaders. And I noticed it in my early career. I worked for big companies, multinational companies, but then I moved to smaller companies, and I noticed it there too. And it was just something I reflected on, and I became more and more curious. And when I looked into it and looked into the research, I discovered there actually had been quite a lot of research that shows that typically the traits that organizations use to decide whether someone has potential and use to select people for promotion are not only not the traits that most make them most effective in a leadership role. We're actually more likely to select people who are showing the inverse of the traits that will make them effective. So you're more likely to be promoted if you behave in a way that won't make you particularly effective as a leader in a bigger job, which is a huge problem. And it means that there's a lot of untapped potential within organizations and a lot of incompetent leadership, which is harming organizations rather than helping them. So I guess in terms of that idea of whether leaders are made or born, I mean, it's a good question. I think you can learn to be a great leader, but I also believe that if you are born with the traits that make you a great leader, sadly, in most organizations, certainly of the 1,600 organizations that were included in the research I'm talking about, if you're born with the traits that make you a great leader, you're actually less likely to get into a leadership position unless you're aware of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you are right. A lot of wrong leaders can get into organizations, and perhaps that is one of the reasons of this whole think of, crisis in leadership, crisis of leadership, and as well as the
Mm.
great resignation and quiet quitting that is very much on. So, who finds these hidden leaders? Whose job is it? Because in organizations, is it the human resource department, or is it someone else? As well as an individual, if I understand myself a bit better, then how do I find whether I'm leadership material? And Because a lot of people are blowing their own trumpet, and they are not leaders, and they are getting all the responsible positions in life. Help us understand whose job is it, who will bring out
Mm.
my leadership to the forefront.
Well, so I think there's responsibility on both sides. So absolutely, the organizations have a responsibility and they have an enormous vested interest in getting this right. So this is leaders themselves and HR departments. And I think great leaders naturally do this. The trouble is, as we've been talking about, there are lots of people in leadership positions who perhaps don't have the self-awareness to know what needs to be done. So the first thing I would say that I think organizations need to do is they need to be really clear about what their criteria for success is. How are they actually measuring the impact of the leaders that they have in position? Because what happens, the research showed, is that you're more likely to be selected if you're confident, not necessarily competent. So the first thing that organizations need to do is make sure that they're really clear what it looks like when someone is competent, and they have a way of assessing that and measuring that and actually holding leaders to account for their ability to support others to bring their best to the organization as well. Then the second thing I would say at the organizational level is that for managers, when they're considering their talent and they're considering succession planning and performance reviews, to look very, very carefully at the people that they are considering as solid contributors or good, solid performers, because I'm not saying all of those people will be hidden leaders, but if you have hidden leaders, that's where they're likely to be. You're likely to see them as very capable and competent at their job, but you might not be aware that they have ambition to do more and that they have the capability to do more. So the first thing I would say is be curious about it, ask more questions, make sure that you're really engaging with those people who you see as capable at what they're doing and you understand their ambition. Because what can happen is, because they're not particularly confident in their own ability and they have very high standards for themselves, their inner monologue will be telling them they're not ready for promotion, they're not good enough, they're missing something. Whereas in reality, they're probably seeing something that the leaders aren't seeing, which is why there's this mismatch. So on the flip side, then, for the individual, for people who wonder, I mean, that's why I'm really keen on doing podcasts and sharing this message with people, because I think for people that are stuck in that situation, they may have a sense that this doesn't seem right. I feel like I'm doing all of the right things and I'm not getting the results I expect, or I'm always being told I'm not quite ready for promotion and I don't really know what's missing. But at the same time, it doesn't make sense to me. So that makes me feel like I am missing something. I'm not ready because if I was more senior, I would understand what it is I'm missing. So what I would say to anyone listening who recognizes that and feels that that's how they feel is just consider for a moment, what if you're seeing things differently because actually you're naturally a very gifted leader and you're seeing something that your managers aren't seeing because you have a natural talent, and actually what you're perhaps telling yourself is a deficiency that it doesn't make sense to you because you don't understand. What if it's not a deficiency in you? What if actually you're seeing something that other people are missing, and that allows you to contribute in a way beyond what the people around you can? And sometimes just allowing yourself to consider that possibility can give you the courage that you need to speak up, or to ask a question, or to say, actually, I see it differently. What if we considered thinking about it differently? So yes, I think the responsibility is on both sides, and yeah, if you recognize yourself in that description, I really encourage you to reflect on, what if you're not the problem? What if it's about being in the right situation?
Absolutely, absolutely. They are not the problem, and they might become problem where the organizational leadership does not want people who have who are just competent. They want people who can conform to what they are talking about, and that is where the problem lies. That these people who question can become a problem for them, and that is why. Is that the reason organizations do not want leaders who will question? They only want leaders who will conform to whatever belief that they are following, whatever systems that they are following. Is that one of the reasons that we have got this whole leadership problem in so many areas of our corporate life?
Well, see, that's a tricky question, because I like to assume, in a sense, that this isn't a conscious decision. It's actually ignorance. So it's a lack of awareness of the talent that's in the organization that is causing this. So rather than it being a kind of malicious intent to keep people down, and there may be elements of that, if you're working for a leader who feels insecure and threatened, which can happen if the wrong people have been promoted, then absolutely and that's a very difficult situation. And if that's you, and you're feeling that you're trapped because you're stuck working for a leader whose insecurity is blocking your own career progression, then I think you need to think really carefully about what options you have to get yourself out of that situation, because it's never good for your well-being. But I think more generally, it tends to happen because these people are genuinely being overlooked. Their managers are just not aware of how smart and capable they are. And the individual is assuming that if they were good enough, they would be recognized. So sometimes all that's needed is a bit more confidence to speak up, or ask questions, or be curious about things. And again, there can be a feeling that, if you challenge, then you're a problem. Again, I would encourage people to think about the fact that disagreeing, or questioning, or wanting to understand in a different way doesn't have to be about conflict. It can just be about getting to a better solution. It can be about adding additional ideas in to strengthen the solution that's being developed. So actually sharing your opinion when it's different is enormously valuable. The other thing I would say for people that feel that they might be stuck in this situation is it's really important to try and build a network around you who can help you validate and test your own thinking and your own value. So finding ideally mentors in your organization, finding someone more senior than you that you admire and respect, and spending time talking to them about your ideas. But if you can't find that, finding peers or even people outside of your organization that also are passionate about making a difference, that really believe in contribution through their work, and using that group to exchange ideas, share your thoughts. Because what I find is that when you bring people who identify themselves as hidden leaders, when you bring them together and they talk together about their ideas, their challenges, what they're struggling with, they see themselves reflected in each other and they see how brilliant the people around them are. And there's just something very magical that happens when you see yourself reflected in an organization that's around you that you value and admire. It allows you to kind of see yourself in a more realistic light as well.
Right, right, Alison. Now you talk about traits that keep hidden leaders stuck are the very same traits that ultimately make them exceptional leaders. If you can explain this to our audience, what do you mean by this, so that they can understand it for themselves?
Yeah, sure. So the traits that make someone a really great leader are things like the ability to bring people together, the ability to facilitate a discussion where not everyone is bringing the same perspective, but different ideas are heard and thought, and the thinking strengthens by sharing lots of ideas. It's the ability to be vulnerable enough to be open to say, I don't know, I may not have the answer. What do you think? Let's put this in. Like, I've got this idea, but I don't think this part works. How can we make it better? It's the ability to focus on the outcome and the good of the organization, the benefit of the group above your own need for your ego to be comfortable. So it's kind of the traits that I see as really critical that in leadership are things like having humility, having emotional intelligence. But again, what's seen is that the higher humility you are in humility, the more willing you are to put the needs of the group above the needs of your own need for recognition, the less likely you are to get promoted. So that's why you have this paradox that actually, if you're more of a quiet leader, if you're someone who's comfortable to be in the background because you want to elevate your team and make it possible for other people's voices to be heard, then very often you're not seen, you're overlooked, and you're missed for promotion, even though you're the person that's making these great results possible.
Right, right. There is much to learn from you about these things, Alison, and I'm sure a lot of people want to understand these things. Especially, you have this hidden leaders program. Tell us a bit about this.
Yeah, sure.
How
So
who is
I
this
have a
program for? How can people be part of this program?
Sure. So it's a
Right.
community that anyone can join. It's an online community, and really the idea of it is to bring people together with other individuals who also are ambitious for their lives and their career, but want to do it in a way that feels authentic, and they may feel that they're struggling to get the results that they want at work. So it's a membership community. The idea is to foster connection between individual members. It's kind of virtual online. I share recordings a couple of times a month, and we also have community calls where we get together and talk, and people connect with each other. And really, what we do through that is we get very specific about the goals that we want to achieve in our lives and our career. We work through a framework together. We hold each other accountable for taking actions that might be a bit outside our comfort zone. But really, what I see is that that community just helps build confidence so much. And through this process of setting goals and then taking consistent action towards achieving them, you're effectively building the evidence you need to feel confident in your capability to achieve more. And it just becomes this virtual this kind of virtuous circle of your confidence grows, so you can achieve more and kind of push for even greater goals. So many members of the community, get promoted, they move jobs, they complete additional training, they do things that when they joined they didn't think would be possible for them, and it's really fantastic and just a really nice community to be part of.
Right. So, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
So I have a website, it's hidden-leader.com.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, AJ.